learn how to use it. And so for that, Bloomberg targeted him. Okay, they had $500,000 spent on that sheriff's race, and of course, it was just a Democrat primary because there wasn't any Republican opposition. So essentially, Dave Clark won. And the interesting thing to me about it is, even though Bloomberg by himself gave $150,000, Dave Clark said the people are going to realize that this is not for sale. And I think that's the key. We're going to see this as we go through this tonight. We're going to see this as a common recurring theme of these billionaires who basically have turned into one-man political action committees.
Oh, yes.
Because they have so much money, so much clout. And I think there's a lot more to it than just guns with Bloomberg. He's anti-freedom on a lot of different issues.
He's a control freak. He wants to tell you, you know, what kind of soda you can have.
That's right. If you look at it, the guy who's head of the CDC now, Frieden, was his soda guy back in New York, okay? He's against your freedom in every respect, but he also wants to empower himself. That's what's behind a lot of this money that he's targeting people on. I mean, he is definitely against the Second Amendment because that allows the people to have a check on uncontrolled government power. And he wants uncontrolled government power. But he also wants to endear himself to certain politicians. And we'll see that as a recurring theme with Sheldon Adelson, with the amendment in Florida with medical marijuana. We'll see that over and over again, that these guys have so much money. So we're going to be looking at a follow the money as we come back up. But let's take the discussion to militarization of the police. Joe, you guys saw that firsthand. Both of you guys saw that firsthand in Ferguson. We've been reporting about that for a long time. Alex has been warning people about this for 20 years, that this is where everything is heading. The John Birch Society has been talking about it probably for 50 years. I mean, this is something that has been in the cards. They've been gradually building for, but now we're really at the event horizon. I mean, this is happening now and accelerating very rapidly, as if we're going into some kind of a black hole.
You know, but why isn't this a major political issue right now?
Exactly. Nobody's talking about it.
This is something that needs to be talked about on a large scale nationwide, because police violence is rampant right now.
Yes.
I mean, it is out of control. You give a child a toy, and he doesn't know how to use it. He's just going to play with it. However, you know, these guys are being given military gear, funding, without proper training.
As a matter of fact, this is a live show. If somebody wants to contact us and tell us, if you have a race in your area where there is a local city councilman or a state legislator or somebody running for statewide office, or maybe even somebody running for federal office, where they have actually said they're concerned about out-of-control police, they're concerned about the militarization of the police, let us know. We'll give that person a plug. Tomorrow's the day that everybody's going to vote. Go ahead, Joe. What do you want to say?
Yeah, this is, it all goes down to the fact, back with Ferguson. Ferguson was a huge eye-opener for this militarization of police on a large scale. You know, a lot of people hear about it. It's on different websites like Police State USA, things like that. But Ferguson was a first time on a global scale, I could say, where people could actually just watch, turn on their TV on any channel almost, and see these cops and these MRAPs pointing sniper rifles at people. That's something that you see overseas in combat. To see it on the streets here, that's something that people need to open their eyes. And like you said, this needs to be a big issue. People need to talk about this, and it's something that needs to stop. And you know, after a lot of these issues happened in Ferguson, people are like, whoa, a lot of these police stations are like, I don't want this equipment anymore. I want to turn it back in. You know, and they're not letting them take it.
Right. Exactly. And we had a situation earlier this summer when you talked about the equipment program. This is the Defense Logistics 1033 program, where they want to give the MRAPs and all this heavy equipment to the local police stations. Interestingly enough, even though they are basically opening the floodgates for these police departments, they stopped it this summer for fire departments. A 60-year-old program that basically gave surplus trucks. They would have had to pay $200,000, $300,000. They could do it for a tenth of the cost to upfit that. That's a program that's been going on for 60 years. And the Pentagon 1033 program basically said, we're going to stop that. At the same time, they're opening the floodgates. Now, that got turned back. It took about 3 weeks because the firemen are a pretty activist group, and it affected the local fire departments. They were the ones who really needed it. It was local, rural fire departments, volunteer fire stations. They take care of 83% of the fires, okay? Many of them on federal land. They're in large rural areas where it's going to take them a very long time to truck in equipment or to truck in water, so they need this kind of equipment to fight those fires effectively.
Well, they're first responders half the time, too. They're quicker than police.
But see, we hear that this program is being given to police because they're concerned, they want them to have equipment for emergency situations. That's not the case. Why would you cut it off to the fire departments? They said they were cutting it off because they were going to start enforcing an EPA regulation that they've ignored for 25 years. Suddenly they were going to enforce it.
It's like they're strategically placing all this equipment all over the place, and like we were talking about, they're not letting these police stations turn the equipment back in, but what they're making them do is run the maintenance on it and keep everything up to date, and they're making them.
You can't take these things down to Jiffy Lube. You know, these are hardcore military vehicles. You know, somebody has to pay for this because how they get them is they give them these MRAPs at dirt cheap prices. You know, $2 grand, $3 grand is nothing. You know, they spend more on graphics. A lot of them do, and putting the sirens on.
Well, the MRAPs in particular, they were rushed to the theater, of battle because they wanted something that was going to withstand the roadside bombs and everything. So they've had a lot of maintenance issues with these vehicles. Been very, very expensive to maintain. So their solution, I think, as we've talked about this, I think they're basically, it's like the white elephant, you know, where the Indian Raja used to give you this sacred elephant and now you had to feed it. They're sending this equipment to local municipalities and telling them, okay, this still belongs to the DOD. This is a lease thing. You don't own it, but you have to maintain it, and you can't get rid of it without our permission. And so when these people, like you're talking about, want to get rid of it, they basically get silence on the other end of the line. They don't tell them they're going to take it back or anything. Meanwhile, they're on the hook to maintain this stuff. And it's pre-positioned for martial law in all these different localities.
Because you see, just like what happened in Ferguson, you know, in the early days when we first got out there, you know, we were interacting with crowds that were 98% peaceful. You know, there's, definitely been some things that gone on since then, but they come out there and they use these military tactics, aiming guns at people in the crowd, firing pretty much indiscriminately with rubber bullets into blinding clouds of smoke. And then they come out and they say, well, yeah, we gave it to them, the Pentagon, DOD, whoever, but we didn't know they would actually use it. You know, it's like
I said, you give a kid a toy, he's going to play with it.
Well, they've made it clear that in order to get this equipment, they want you to have arrest and apprehension powers. That's why they don't want the firemen to have it. Okay. Now, when they got a pushback from the Congress, and the Congress sent the letter to the Pentagon and got them to reverse this program, they said, all right, we won't give them the equipment anymore. We'll loan it to them. But they were already loaning it to them. I mean, there were multiple papers talking about how there was one in Indiana. They said $12 million worth of surplus equipment is now on loan to more than 250 volunteer fire departments in Indiana. That was when it was stopped back at the end of June. They also said in Oklahoma, over 8,000 vehicles valued at $150 million being used by Oklahoma Fire Department. So what they did was they lied about it. What a surprise, okay? They lied about it and they said, all right, we'll change the rules. Instead of giving it to you, we'll keep it on loan, and then that will get around the EPA requirements, okay?
Yeah, these guys are supposed to protect and serve. I mean, how often is it you're driving down the road and you look in your rearview mirror and see a cop and go, oh my God, I feel a lot safer. No, you feel a little nervous because the way these guys act nowadays, you don't know if they're gonna pull you over something bogus and then you're gonna get shot. Because we saw it happen in South Carolina when that guy reached for his ID, he shot him up at the gas station. These guys are out of control. I mean, another thing are these no-knock raids that are going on. That is something that's got to stop because their intel is off a lot of times. They go to the wrong houses and people pay the price. Babies, things like that. It's got to stop.
Yeah, Baby Bobo is what he's referencing there, and you see it on the screen if you're watching on INFOWARS.com/show. Yes, they throw a flashbang into this house. They blow half the baby's face off. And then they come out and
expose his ribs as well.
Yeah, and then they come out and say, well, we found that we did nothing wrong because it's our policy. And that's what it always comes down to, whether it's Ferguson, in the city of Houston, I believe it was, where a little girl, or not a little girl, a teenage girl was on her cell phone in the school. The cops come in, they throw her down. She's, 14 pounds, 14 years old, 100 pounds, soaking wet. And they throw her down on the ground, put a knee on her face because that's their policy. It's the policies that need to change because so often when these things happen, is our policy.
Because they've gone into a complete and total military aspect of how they approach all their situations. Any call they go on, it's a shoot first, ask questions later mentality now. That's something that they do in the military. They used to. They don't even do it anymore. Now in the military, ever since I think it was around 2008 in Afghanistan, you had to be fired at before you could actually fire back. These guys are having like old school war mentalities. They're getting out of the car, guns or hands on a gun, hand on a taser. Remember the time we'd been chased by police? I was trying to find our way back into the media area at Ferguson, and I just went and knocked up on a police car the window, and the guy had his hand automatically on the taser, ready to hit me. And I was showing him my press pass saying, hey, I just need to get back to the media area. What can I do? And this guy automatically, that's something that he feels threatened by.
Yeah, and then, you know, I was with Biggs when that happened, and he looks at me and he's like, where's your press pass? I was like, well, I lost it when you guys were shooting at me when I was running down the street. You know, it's just completely ridiculous how, you know, they approach things, even media. You know, they'll come out there and try to silence the media like that. But, you know, beyond Ferguson, we look at other aspects like, you know, like the use of tasers. You know, it happened right here in the city of Bastrop, right outside this city of Austin. And there's a young man who broke up a fight, and it's on video. You know, local news has released it as well as other news outlets. And the young man breaks up a fight, then the cop just comes up and tases him from behind. He falls down and busts his head open. You know, we've had his attorney on the show who talked about this, and the cops say, you know, we did nothing wrong. I was like, how can you say you did nothing wrong when you tased somebody who was not only not a threat to you, but was helping diffuse the situation?
Well, and of course, earlier this year, we saw out in New Mexico that homeless man that was shot, the video of that. And then just last week, we saw 8 cops unload their weapons into one man, 49 years old, standing off at a distance from them. So the question is, what do we do about this? Because there is nobody that I know of that is talking about how do we stop this control of law enforcement, this changing the rules of engagement, this brainwashing at the federal level. How do we disincentivize that? There's no penalty for the cops who do this. Basically, the police union is standing there for them. The federal government wants them to do that. There is no personal liability, essentially, for them in most cases that's going to stop that. We don't even see the budget of that police department being cut. I think that whenever you've got a lawsuit, when they act egregiously like that, and there's an award of a couple of $1 million to surviving relatives, I think that ought to come out of the police department. I think there ought to be something that comes out of the cops who actually did that. I think they should have some skin in the game for that.
Well, you're seeing more and more of these police officers get hemmed up, get put in their place because citizens are starting to film the police.
Yeah.
At the traffic stops, anything like that, they are starting to film everything when they get pulled over. And I think that's something that people need to get into the habit of. They need to start filming the police and protecting themselves, and let the police officer know, hey, sir, I'm filming you. I'm not just doing this for your protection, but I'm doing it for mine as well.
And that's something we're going to talk about later. People in Keene, New Hampshire are very much about watching each other's backs. They show up when somebody's getting a ticket. They actually have a patrol where they go around and help people. They call it the Robin Hood Patrol, where they help people to keep them from getting parking tickets. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about, and that is, what can you do to transcend the system? We're going to talk about that tonight. We'll also be talking about that tomorrow. We've got some interviews coming up with tomorrow with the Free State Project. There are things that you can do that are, I think, more effective than the election system. Of course, we want to participate in every way that we can to try to stick it down the throat of the globalists and the people who are trying to destroy this country. I want to go now to Leanne McAdoo. She's at our Twitter desk, and she's looking at some of the things that people have tweeted. Leanne, what have you got there?
Thanks, David. Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Joe, Joe 012594. He is trolling the dinosaur media for us, basically using this election 2014 hashtag to go ahead and troll the dinosaur media, and everyone else just saying, hey, come on over to InfoWars. We're going to be here covering live tonight from 7 p.m. to 10, starting tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. until we shut it down. But Terry Henry here, McDubious, he wants to know what would we say to if voting changed anything. It would have been outlawed years ago. Now, I think this is a sentiment that a lot of young people are certainly feeling, that their vote doesn't matter, and it seems we're seeing so much voter fraud, election fraud now, of course, with the electronic voting machines. I mean, it does sort of seem, really, the system seems rigged. But just the fact that they are encouraging voter fraud. Obama says go out and you can vote as much as you want, or every day of the week, and then we do see that the voting machines there are glitches. There's a reason for that. So obviously our votes must count, and you can say, well, if I throw my trash in the garbage can, it doesn't matter. If everyone doesn't recycle, it just doesn't matter. But you can't think like that. You've got to vote. You've got to go out and make sure that you're heard and that your vote counts, and just make sure you don't go out and vote for the lesser of two evils. Just get rid of that mindset. Go
that's the
and
mentality
vote for.
I've been seeing a lot of. A lot of people are going to that whole, my vote's not going to count. What's the point? Why should I take the time out of my day to get off work and go vote for something where the system doesn't work, and like you said, you're picking the lesser of two evils. So